Gentlemen, we're going to start. Right, lyk of ons voltallig is. Goeiemôre, dame en here. Baie welkom hierso. By ons veiling vandag. My naam is Johnny Bateman, ek sal julle afslaer wees. Langs my staan Erika, sy gaan die voorwaardes van die eiendom goed uitlees. Maar net namens Broukor en OVK, die Jager Louden, die liquidateur van vandag. Baie welkom. Ons is baie dankbaar vir julle ondersteuning vandag. Die proses gaan soos volg wees. Ek gaan ons gaan eers die vaste eiendom doen. Erika gaan die voorwaardes lees en as ons daar klaar is, dan gaan ek die losbates doen. Losbates se termes is 'n bietjie anderste as die vaste eiendom, maar as ons by dit kom. Ek wil net ook dan baie welkom sê, net aan julle hierso nie, maar ook aan ons 3 aanlyn platforms vandag, AgriMag, Swiftfear en Meerkat. Thank you very much for attending. Ek kan net vir julle sê, ons het geregistreerde kopers vandag, aanlyn so by die 50, daar so 50 tussen die 3 aanlyn platforms wat geregistreer is. Right, dames en here, miskien net voor ons begin, kan ons net die dag reg begin, ons net gou ons hoofde buig. Here, baie dankie vir hierdie wonderlike voorreg wat ons het vandag, as om Suid-Afrikaanse boere en gemeenskap bymekaar te kom. Ons vra vandag asseblief dat jy hierdie veiling sal seën. Ons vra ook jou spesiale seën op Jaco en sy familie en die pad vorentoe, dat julle baie sal gelyk maak. Ons vra ook, Here, ons doen dit elke keer, ons vra dat jy ons boere van ons land sal behoed en bewaar en dat jy ons sal mildelik seën met die reën. Ons vra dit als in Jesus naam. Amen. Right, dames en here, ek gaan vir Erika oorhandig, sy gaan die voorwaardes lees. Werner is ook hierso, as daar enige vrae is, nadat ons klaar als gelees het, sal ons elke vraag wat julle het probeer tot die beste van ons vermoë antwoord. Right, dankie Erika.
Hi guys, I'm Erika Koy. I represent Broker Auctions. I'm registered as a full status real estate professional with the PPRA, and I'm going to do my best to do this quickly, but I have to go through all of this. So let's go. Broker Auctions and OVK Auctioneers, represented by Johnny Bateman, duly instructed by Nkusinati, Newsabele and Daniel Zandile Ndlubu in their capacity as joint provisional liquidators of Nastoworx, hereby offers for sale by public auction the following immovable property as a going concern, subject to the conditions set out hereafter. Title deed description is the Farm 459. Keep in mind that it's 2 consolidated farms. Division of Somerset East, Eastern Cape Province, also known as Fairview, with the transfer deed number, and the size is 1,018.32 hectares approximately. The auction procedure is that the rules of this auction shall comply with the provisions of Section 45 and all relevant regulations to the Consumer Protection Act. The above mentioned property is sold subject to a reserve price. You need to register to bid at the auction. Anyone that intends to bid at the auction must register his or her identity on the bidder's record prior to commencement of the auction, and such registration must be in line with the requirements of PICA, the Financial Intelligence Centres Act, and any person who attends the auction to bid on behalf of another person must produce a letter of authority that expressly authorizes him or her to bid on behalf of that person, and must also meet the PICA requirements. The auction shall take place at the date and time as advertised. The bidder's roll and vendor's roll will be available for registered buyers for inspection with written notice and good reason during the normal office hours at the business premises of the auctioneer. All money due to the seller in terms of the rules of the auction and conditions of the auction will be paid into the seller's attorney's trust account for the benefit of the seller, or alternatively into a nominated auctioneer's trust account. The auctioneer will, during the auction, announce the reason for the auction unless the reason is normal and voluntary disposal of the property by the seller. Should the auctioneer become aware of any error on the advertising material or any other publication or amendment to these rules of the auctioneer will, prior to the auction, point out such matters and, when necessary, amend such errors. The total cost of advertising and conducting the auction are set out in the seller's mandate. Every prospective purchaser must read the rules of the auction and must not bid unless he or she has done so. Should a prospective purchaser that is registered bid at the auction, it must be assumed that the purchaser has read out the rules of the auction. Every bid shall constitute an offer to purchase. An offer to purchase the property for the amount bid upon the terms and conditions contained herein, which the seller or the auctioneer may accept or reject in their absolute discretion. The seller shall be entitled in its absolute discretion to withdraw the property from the sale prior to acceptance by the seller. If no bid equals or exceeds the reserve price, the property may be withdrawn from the auction. The seller shall be entitled to instruct the auctioneer to accept any lower bid. In the event of any dispute arising between the bidders, the decision of the auctioneer shall be final and binding. The auctioneer shall be entitled to correct any errors made by him. No bid may be withdrawn after the fall of the hammer until the expiry of the confirmation period that is provided for in the rules of the auction, during which time the offer shall be open for acceptance by the seller or his agent, and if the offer is accepted, the sale shall be deemed to be a sale by auction for purposes of the Act. The highest bidder, the purchaser, shall sign the conditions of sale immediately on the fall of the hammer. Acceptance and confirmation. The purchaser's offers shall remain open for acceptance by the seller or by the auctioneer on behalf of the seller for 7 days until 12 o'clock on Friday, 21 November 2025. The purchaser's offer shall be deemed to have been accepted only when the seller or the auctioneer, whichever may be applicable, has signed these conditions of sale on behalf of the seller in the space provided at the end thereof, and the seller shall not be required to notify the purchaser of the acceptance of its offer prior to expiry of the confirmation period. Should the seller reject the purchaser's offer, the auctioneer will repay to the purchaser any deposit and commission paid to it in terms of the agreement. Purchase price. The purchase price of the property plus value-added tax, if applicable, shall be paid as follows. A deposit of 10% of the purchase price to the auctioneer by the purchaser immediately on the fall of the hammer, which amount the purchaser hereby authorizes and instructs the auctioneer to pay over to the seller's attorneys. In the case where a deposit is paid into a nominated trust account of the auctioneer, the purchaser authorizes herewith the auctioneer to give command that the deposit amount is to be paid over to the seller's attorneys on request by the seller's attorneys. The purchaser's signature hereto shall constitute the purchaser's written consent to authorize the auctioneer and or the seller's attorneys to invest the amount paid on account of the purchase price in an interest-bearing account until registration of the property into the name of the purchaser, after which the interest shall accrue to the purchaser. The balance of the purchase price shall be paid in cash and secured to the satisfaction of the seller's attorneys by a written guarantee from a registered financial institution, subject to the acceptance thereof by the seller, acting reasonable, payable free of exchange against registration of the transfer of the property into the purchaser's name. The aforesaid guarantee shall be presented to the seller's attorneys within 30 days from receipt of a written request to the effect from the seller's attorneys. Value-added tax. In the case where the property is sold as a going concern, the parties here to agree as follows. The purchase price is inclusive of VAT at the rate of 0%. It is recorded that it is the intention of the parties that this transaction be zero rate VAT transaction in terms of Section 11(1)(e) of the VAT Act, of the Value Added Tax Act. It is recorded that 1, the property constitutes an enterprise as defined in the Act and is sold as a going concern that will, on the date of transfer, be an income-earning activity capable of separate operation, and the purchase of the property shall be zero-rated in terms of Section 11(1)(e). The assets and all other aspects of the business that are necessary for carrying on the enterprise are sold to the purchaser. The seller and purchaser respectively warrant to the other that they will, with effect from the date of registration of this transaction in the Deeds Office, be registered as vendors in terms of the Act. If for any reason VAT is payable on the sale at a rate other than the zero rate, then the purchaser agrees and undertakes that the purchaser will be liable for payment of any such VAT or additional VAT, and such VAT will be added to the purchase price and payable on the registration of transfer and shall be secured as provided for in clause 3.3 above. In the event of VAT being payable, on the purchase price as a result of the sale, such VAT shall be payable by the purchaser in addition to the purchase price, immediately on demand. In the event that the seller, on the date of registration of this transaction in the Deeds Office, is not registered as a dealer in terms of the Act, then the purchaser shall be liable to pay transfer duty on the purchase price. So either VAT or transfer duties. The transfer duty will be payable immediately upon demand by the seller's attorney. The Auctioneer's Commission. Besides the purchase price, the purchaser is liable for the payment of the Auctioneer's Commission promulgated prior to the auction and set out in the Schedule Year 2 plus VAT. The commission will be deemed to have been earned and is payable immediately upon signing of the acceptance of the purchaser's office in terms hereof by the seller. The purchaser shall pay the full amount of the auctioneer's commission into the nominated trust account of the auctioneer immediately at the fall of the hammer, but this amount shall remain the property of the purchaser and shall be retained in trust by the auctioneer or the seller's attorneys for the benefit of the purchaser pending acceptance of the seller of the purchaser's offer, or until the seller either rejects the offer or until expiry of the confirmation period as set out in clause 2.1. Where the seller accepts the offer of the purchaser authorizes the auctioneer and or the seller's attorney to immediately pay over the commission earned plus VAT to the auctioneer from the trust account. Should the seller or the purchaser fail to meet their commitments under this agreement, the auctioneer shall be entitled to recover such commission from the party responsible for breach of contract. It is hereby recorded that should the sale be cancelled by mutual agreement, the auctioneer shall be entitled to the commission under this agreement, which shall be jointly and severally payable by the seller and the purchaser. The provisions of this clause 5 are inserted and intended for the benefit of the auctioneer who by his signature here to accept such benefit. Occupation, possession and risk. Occupation, possession and risk shall pass to the purchaser immediately after acceptance of the offer. If the purchaser takes occupation of the property before registration of transfer, the purchaser shall be liable to pay occupational rent to the seller as calculated as set out in Schedule 1, which amount is payable monthly in advance on the first day of each month from the date of occupation until registration of the property. In the case of occupation prior to registration, all risk in respect of the property, buildings and improvements shall pass to the purchaser. So risk passes on date of occupation. From the date of occupation, the purchaser shall be obliged at his own expense to take out comprehensive insurance over all improvements on the property and to cede such policy to the seller as collateral security until such time as the property has been transferred into his name. Rates and taxes. The seller shall be liable for all rates and taxes and other municipal charges, including water rates and taxes, levied on the property for the period prior to the date of possession, and the purchaser shall be liable for all rates and taxes and other municipal charges, including water rates and taxes levied thereafter. So, rates and taxes over on date of possession. Purchaser shall refund the seller a pro-rated share of all rates and taxes and services paid in advance by the seller for the period after the date of possession, which refund shall be paid upon registration of transfer. Transfer and costs of transfer. Transfer shall not be passed to the purchaser, notwithstanding anything to the contrary herein contained, until such a time as the total purchase price and all other amounts for which the purchaser may be liable in terms hereto have been paid and all payment thereof has been secured as herein provided. Transfer of the property shall be passed to the seller's attorneys, shall be passed by the seller's attorneys as soon as possible after date of acceptance, providing the purchaser has complied with the provisions of the aforementioned subclause. Transfer of the property shall be effected by the seller's attorneys and all expenses of and incidental to the preparation and the registration of transfer, the conveyancing fees, disbursements and VAT if applicable. In respect of such transfer shall be borne by the purchaser, including all expenses and legal costs incidental to the preparation and registration of any mortgage bonds to finance institution approving the finance. Existing lease agreements. The property is sold subject to all existing lease agreements, if applicable, and vacant possession of the property is not given or guaranteed. The seller's instructions are that there are no lease agreements in existence as at date of sale. However, the purchaser waives all claims against the seller in this regard and indemnifies and holds harmless the seller against all claims. The purchaser shall be bound by the terms and conditions of all existing leases, if applicable, of which he acknowledges he is fully apprised, alternatively, which he has elected to accept and abide by. The purchaser is aware of the Restitution of Land Rights Act, the Land Reform Labour Tenants Act, and the Extension of Security of Tenants Act, which regulate and or secure the rights of tenure and occupation on the land of a third party. Save as may be herein set out, the seller has not given any warranty or made any representations whether express or implied, to the purchaser regarding the rights in law of any occupier or potential occupier or any third party in terms of the aforementioned act, and more particularly, the purchaser indemnifies the seller against any claim or action which any occupier or claimant may bring in terms of the property. A list of occupiers on the property as at signature date of these conditions is attached as Schedule 2. So there is a list of the people living on this farm. Repairs and improvements. Prior to registration of transfer, the purchasers shall not be entitled to effect any alterations to the property without prior written consent of the seller. The seller shall not be obliged to compensate the purchaser for any authorized alterations effected in the event of the sale being cancelled, and the purchaser shall be liable for any damages suffered by the seller as a result of any alterations effected by the purchaser not authorized by the seller. Footsteps, extent and representations. The property, including the water entitlements and developments thereon, is sold footsteps and subject to the terms and conditions and servitudes mentioned or referred to in the current and or prior title deeds, and to the conditions of the establishments of the township in which it is situated, and to the zoning applied to under any town planning scheme. The seller shall not profit by any excess, nor shall it be answerable for any deficiency in extent thereof. Neither the seller nor the auctioneer shall be responsible for pointing out to the purchaser any surveys, pegs or beacons in respect of the property unless requested to do so by the purchaser or unless the seller and or auctioneer had knowledge of any material deficiencies in the extent. The purchaser acknowledges that he has not been induced to entering this agreement by any express or implied information, statement, advertisement, or representation made or given any warranties in respect of the property or anything relating hereto by the auctioneer or any other person, or by or on behalf of the seller, and that is not contained in this agreement. The purchaser is aware of the specific information regarding the property contained in Schedule 1, Schedule 4, and 5, which was read out to the by the auctioneer prior to the auction. Schedule 1 pertains to special conditions. I will get to them. Schedule 4 is consent to subdivision and has to do with the water rights, which we will handle after this. And Schedule 5 has to do with the National Environmental Management Act. I will also get to that just after this. The purchaser has acquainted himself with the property and vegetation thereon, including the citrus and other fruit orchards, as well as remaining irrigable land, dams and boreholes. The seller does not warrant the legality of any improvements or developments on the property, and it is recorded that it is the obligation of the purchaser to acquaint himself with the property and all vegetation improvements and developments thereon. The seller does not warrant that a ploughing certificate in terms of the applicable legislation was obtained by the company in liquidation. The seller has further disclosed the compliance notice issued by the Department of Environmental Affairs, and the obligation vests upon the purchaser to deal with the applications in terms of the applicable legislation to the relevant department at the purchaser's expense and risk. The seller records that there may be other non-compliance by the company in liquidation with regard to legislative requirements of which the seller is not aware. The purchaser purchases the property and the water entitlements together with plantations, improvements and vegetation on an as-is, footsteps in other words, basis, and waives all claims of whatever nature or cause of action against the seller and the auctioneer and the purchaser by affixing the signature of his representative to these conditions of sale indemnifies and holds harmless the seller and the auctioneers from any claims whatsoever pursuant to the sale. For the avoidance of doubt and without limitation, the purchaser assumes any and all risk arising from all legislation of whatever nation and from whatever cause arising, applicable to, relevant to, and in relation to any and all aspects in the connection therewith. The seller discloses that the company in liquidation, prior to the date of provisional liquidation, entered into agreement with Sunwool, the old Citra Gold, for a protected citrus variety, and more specifically ARCC 1T9, which variety is protected in favour of Sunwool under the Plant Breeders' Right Acts of 1976 with registration number ZA 2013-5430. The purchaser, in accordance with the provisions of the aforesaid commercial growers license and non-propagation agreement, shall have two options. The first option is to destroy the specific trees of the protected variety, or the second option is assuming the outstanding liability by the company in liquidation towards Sunwool, Citra Gold in brackets, of 214,038 rand, so it's 214038, excluding VAT, whereafter the purchaser may continue with the commercial growers license and non-propagation agreement to be ceded and assigned to the purchaser. It is the obligation of the purchaser to ascertain the status of the aforesaid. A letter from Sunwool is annexed here to marked Schedule 6. The purchaser indemnifies and holds harmless the seller against any claims in this regard. This is important.
Do you need some water? Do you need some water?
I have. Sorry guys, here we go. Breach. If one of the parties commits a breach of this agreement or fails to comply with any of the provisions hereof, then the aggrieved party shall be entitled to give the defaulting party 7 days' notice in writing to remedy such breach of failure, unless such breach of failure occurs after the transfer documents have been lodged in the deeds office or registration, in which case the 7-day period may, at the election of the aggrieved party, be reduced to 48 hours. If the defaulting party fails to comply with such notice, then the innocent party shall forthwith be entitled, but not obliged, without prejudice to any other rights or remedies which it may have in law, including the right to claim damages, to cancel this agreement, and upon cancellation, if the defaulting party is the purchaser, the seller shall be entitled to retain all amounts paid by the purchaser, excluding auctioneer's commission, as ROQA, or as a genuine pre-estimate of damage suffered by the seller, and furthermore, the purchaser shall not be entitled to compensation from the seller for any improvements of whatever nature it may have caused on the property, whether with or without the seller's consent. The parties specifically agree that the auctioneer shall be entitled but not obliged to immediately resubmit the property for auction, and if the defaulting party is the seller, the purchaser shall be entitled to full refund of all money paid in terms hereof to the seller and to the auctioneer, and to claim any other damages from the seller that it may have suffered as a result of the seller's default, or to claim immediate performance and or payment of all the defaulting parties' obligation in terms hereof. Upon cancellation of this agreement, for whatever reason, the purchaser hereby undertakes to forthwith vacate the property and to procure that the property shall be vacated by any persons who occupy the property through the purchaser's title or by his permission. Occupation shall be re-delivered to the seller in the same good condition as the date of possession by the purchaser. Occupancy of the property by the purchaser or persons on the authority of the purchaser shall not create a tenancy either in terms of any statutory provision or at common law. Notwithstanding what is contained herein, should the purchaser pay any amount as required under these rules of auction, the parties record and agree that the auctioneer shall be entitled to first deduct from any such money paid under these rules of auction the value of its commission and any direct costs incurred and recover any shortfall thereon from the purchaser. It is recorded that further that the deduction by the auctioneer of commission due to it under the sale does not absolve the purchaser from any and all other obligations arising from these rules of auction. Legal costs. The defaulting party shall be liable for all legal costs incurred by the aggrieved party. The address or domicilium. The purchaser and the seller hereby choose their respective addresses, domicilium sitandi et executandi, for all purposes in respect of this agreement, including all notices and court process to be delivered in terms hereof. The address recorded below, his signature hereunder. Any notice sent by prepaid registered post shall be deemed to have been received on the 5th day of the posting. Any notice delivered by hand shall be deemed to have been received on the day of delivery. Any notice sent by telefax or electronically transmitted, such as email, shall be deemed to have been received on the first business day of the date of dispatch. Any notice will be given in writing, which includes any email or telefax. Joint and several liability. If this agreement is concluded with more than one purchaser, the liability of all such purchases to the seller and to the auctioneer shall be joint and several in solidium. Insolvency Act. The parties agree that notice of the sale of the property pursuant to this agreement will not be published by the seller, and the seller indemnifies the purchaser against any claims which may be made arising from the said sale not being advertised. Employment contracts. The parties acknowledge and agree that they are aware of the content and effect of Section 197 of the Labour Relations Act, and specifically its application to the deed of sale. The parties record that in accordance with the provisions of Section 197 of the Labour Relations Act, the contracts of employment of each of the employees of the seller who are employed in respect of the property on the date of transfer will be transferred to the purchaser. The names of these employees are in Schedule 2. For clarity, the seller guarantees that to the best of their knowledge, no employees other than those listed in Schedule 2 will be employed on the date of transfer of the property into the name of the purchaser, and the seller hereby indemnifies and holds the purchaser blameless against any claim which may be instituted against the purchaser by the employees not listed in the Schedule 2. In the event that the purchaser, within a period of 12 months from the date of registration of the property in the name of the purchaser, dismiss any of the employees listed in Schedule 2 due to farming operational requirements only, the purchaser will be responsible for the severance packages as set out in the Labour Relations Act. The purchaser hereby indemnifies and holds the seller blameless against any claim which may be instituted against the seller by any of the employees transferred to the purchaser pursuant to clause 17.2 or otherwise arising from the dismissal of any of the said employees after the date of transfer or arising from the failure of the purchaser to perform any of its obligations relating to the terms and conditions of employment and the said employees. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary herein contained, the purchaser shall not be entitled to terminate the services of any services or any employee of any employee to the registration of prior to the registration of transfer of the property The seller assumes the responsibility to disclose the contents of this clause 17 to employees that will be affected by this agreement and to explain its implications to such employees. Company to be formed. In the event of the purchaser signing this agreement in his capacity as agent for a company to be formed, and the purchaser fails within 20 days from date of acceptance and confirmation of this agreement to register such company, having as one of its objects the ratification and adoption of this agreement, or such company fails to adopt or ratify this agreement within 15 days of the days of the date of incorporation, then in such an event the purchaser shall be deemed as from the date thereof to have entered into this agreement in his personal capacity and to have acquired all rights and obligations of the purchaser under this agreement. In the event of such company being registered and duly adopting or ratifying this agreement or the nominated effect, then the purchaser by his signature hereunder shall be deemed to bind himself to the seller as surety and co-principal debtor in solidium with such company for the due performance by as purchaser of the terms, conditions and obligations arising out of this agreement. Companies, close corporation, associations or trust. Should the purchaser be a company, close corporation, association or trust, the person signing this agreement on behalf of such purchaser by his signature here to interposes and binds himself as surety for the co-principal debtor for and co-principal debtor with the purchaser for the due and proper discharge of all its obligations arising from this agreement. If any individual purports to be representing another person, including a company, close corporation, association, or trust, and sign these rules of auction on that basis, that individual shall, by signing this agreement on behalf of such another person, be held personally liable for the due and proper discharge of all the purchaser's obligation in terms of these rules of auction. And that individual shall be deemed to be the purchaser. Where such other person does not exist at the time of signing these rules of auction by the individual, this provision does not apply to instances contemplated in Clause 18. COCs. The purchaser hereby undertakes to furnish the seller's attorneys prior to transfer to the purchaser with a certificate of compliance in respect of the property in terms of the Electrical Installation Regulation of 2009 under the Occupational Health and Safety Act as amended, issued by an electrical contractor who is registered in terms of all the regulations. All costs incurred in obtaining such shall be borne to the purchaser. Upon the purchaser furnishing the seller's attorneys with such a certificate, the purchaser shall have no claim whatsoever against the seller in respect of electrical installations, and no further liability in this regard shall rest upon the seller. The seller warrants that as at date of occupation or transfer, there will have been no addition or alteration to the electrical installations existing on the property subsequent to the issue of such certificate. In the event that there has been any addition and or alteration, the seller shall be obliged to obtain a certificate of compliance for at least the addition or alteration. In the event of an electrical fence certificate on the property, the purchaser of the Electrical Machinery Regulations 2011, an additional COC will be issued by an accredited authority, confirming compliance of the electrical fence installation with SANS and the number. Alien and invasive species regulations. The seller acknowledges his obligations in terms of the Alien and Invasive Species Regulation to notify the purchaser of listed invasive species categorized in terms of Chapter 2 of the regulations, and hereby confirm that no such invasive species is present on the property, or alternatively, that a list of invasive species will be provided to the purchaser prior to registration. Interpretation: in this agreement, words importing the singular shall include the plural, and vice versa. Words importing the masculine gender shall include the feminine gender, and words importing persons shall include body corporate. Water compliancy, water entitlement, sorry. The above-mentioned property is registered with the Department of Water and Sanitation in terms of the National Water Act number 36 of 98, and is therefore entitled to water usage as set out in the water registration document and further annexed hereto marked Schedule 4. It is the purchaser's responsibility to satisfy himself of the volume of water registered on the property, and the seller provides no warranty in this regard, and the purchaser indemnifies and holds harmless the seller against the claims in this regard. These water entitlements will be transferred to the purchaser on a footsteps basis and subject to Schedule 4, and the seller will sign all necessary documents on request to enable the transfer of the water entitlement. I just want to ask Bernard quickly to just explain the water here, because Schedule 4 is quite a hefty document. So, okay, so let's go on. I'm almost done. Then Bernard will handle that. National Environmental Management Act. The seller records that the purchaser shall be obliged, and at the purchaser's expense, to submit and process an application in terms of Section 24G of the National Environmental Management Act, as recorded in the Notice of Intention, to issue a compliance notice in terms of Section 31L of the Act, annexed hereto marked Schedule 5. The purchaser indemnifies and holds harmless the seller against all claims in this regard. The purchaser acknowledges and understands by affixing their signature hereto that duty of care in terms of Section 28 of the Act shall pass to the purchaser. Copy Act. The seller and purchasers hereby give their consent to the auctioneer involved in the sale and to the conveyancing attorneys who will register the transfer of the property to process their personal information for all purposes related to the sale in accordance with the provisions of the Act. General clauses. These rules of auction and conditions of sale constitute the whole agreement between the parties as the subject matter hereof, and no agreement, representation or warranty between the parties other than those set out herein are binding on the parties. No extension of time, waiver, indulgence, or suspension of any provisions of this agreement which any party hereto may have given shall be binding unless recorded in a written document signed by all parties. No variation or alteration or cancellation of these conditions of sale or any of the terms hereof shall be of any force or effect unless in writing and signed by the parties hereto. Words importing the singular shall include the plural and vice versa. Words importing the masculine, we've heard this. The party signing this document confirms that they have read and understood all the terms and conditions contained herein and agree that they are bound hereto. The seller and the purchaser warrants that they are duly authorized to sign acceptance of the deed of sale. Each provision of this agreement is severable from the others, and if any provision is found by any competent court to be defective or unenforceable for any reason whatever, the remaining provisions shall be of full force and effect and continue to be of full force and effect. Okay, so that is the agreement of sale. Then Annexure 1, Schedule 1 here. Just sums up that there's no use of right, there are servitudes, there are wet water entitlements, and it is a going concern. Schedule 2 is the names of the MPs living here, and Schedule 3 is just very important because it is the fixed improvements and movable assets that is included. It's a 6-tower Bauer center, 360 pivot, 6-tower pivot of 30 hectares. The condition is that it does not run. It has no overhang, and parts of this pivot is basically unobtainable. Then there's a pivot Bauer 5 towers of 34 hectares. Tower 4 and 5 is hanging skew, and parts are unobtainable. Then the third one is a center 363 tower, 12 hectare pivot, currently stuck, but it seems to be in a running condition. Number 4 is a 4 tower, 11 hectare in progress, not yet completed, only center point erected. And number 5 is a center 364 tower pivot, no gearbox, motor wheels, structure in good condition, tower 5 and overhang is not there. Number 6 is center 363 tower, 12.5 hectares in a reasonable running condition. Number 7 is a Zematic G1 4 tower in a working condition but very old. And number 8 is a Zematic 3 tower, reasonably good condition. The assets were inspected and conditions has been determined to the best of our ability. The purchaser, however, agrees that the assets are included in the sale with no guarantees and accepts them as footstones.
Thank you for your patience. I'll be very quick. You may find it strange that the sale is presented on a basis whereby the seller indemnifies itself and holds itself harmless from any liability as far as representations are concerned. The reason for that is that the joint liquidators have been in possession of the administration of this estate for a reasonably short period of time. So we're not aware of everything, and we're very grateful to members of the public that came forward and told us the effects that we didn't know of. Two, for instance, I will mention, we didn't know that there was a Section 31J notice issued by the Department of Environmental Affairs. So immediately upon receipt of that information, we included it in the record of sale, and we disclosed it. We, I think, at some stage, erroneously advertised the centre pivot to be in working condition. We got an expert in, they are not in working condition, as you've heard, so we immediately changed that. We inserted the provisions with regard to the fruit that are under contract with Sunworld. So the contract is available and the letter is available from Sunworld. So this is just an explanation that unfortunately we don't know whether all legalities required have been complied with, hence the warranties or the fact that we can't sell with any warranties. To summarize, the sale is offered as a going concern. There are orchards, so to the best of our knowledge, VAT has been paid up to date, we're bringing the books up to date, we're doing our absolute best to get good with SARS so that we can sell as a going concern, to facilitate the non-payment of VAT or the payment of VAT at the rate of 0%. If that is payable, obviously, then it will be payable by the purchaser in addition to the purchase price. That brings along the complication of the staff. To make it a true going concern transaction, we need to comply with Section 197 of the Labour Relations Act. Then that tags along the staff with the transaction. To the best of our knowledge, and again, this is what information I give to you, I must qualify as information having been imparted to us by Mr. Jacob Wilken and others. So to the best of our knowledge, there are approximately 13 employees in the employer of the company, in the permanent employer of the company. And the gross monthly salary, to the best of our knowledge, is approximately 80,000 rand per month as it currently stands. That includes Mr. Edie Skoonby, the manager, and his salary. As far as the water entitlements are concerned, we know the following. We got from the department a letter which says there are 106.6 hectares registered in favour of the farm. Then we sought clarity from A&R attorneys, Mr. Andre van Lingen's office, and there's a lady there, Mrs. van Aert, who did a lot of work on this, and she pointed out to us all of this are available as annexures to the agreement of sale and are available today here. She pointed out to us that there was a subdivision of a certain portion of property belonging to the Davenport, and from the 106.6 there should be subtracted 8.8 hectares of water entitlements, which should go with that subdivision. And then, according to her, there's an amount of 11.1 hectares that should come across from Zone B to this property. So it's 106.6 minus 8.8 plus 11.1. Those transactions will have to be processed and finalized by the purchaser. We can't warrant the information. We're giving you information to the best of our knowledge. The portion about VAT, there was mention made of transfer duty possibly being payable. Forget about that. There won't be transfer duty payable. The sellers are registered as that vendor. So only that will be payable. Transfer duty is not applicable. Any other questions? Okay. Over to you, John. Good luck.
All right, I'll try to do this in fast forward then. Dankie, Erika. Ladies and gentlemen, just before I start, can I just say something? Us as auctioneers, and me and Johan were talking of OVK. Obviously we work a lot with liquidators and stuff. It's part of our business. I just want to congratulate Werner, Deborah, you and your team. This is actually unheard of. This type of being so transparent. And for us as a company, that's what we try and do as well, is being transparent and try to put all the facts on the table. It's fantastic, and well done to you. Deborah, baie dankie. Dit was vir ons 'n groot eer en plesier. Right then, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Then over to me. I hope your hands are itching. What I'm going to do is then, obviously, as I said, the property first. So we've done all the terms and conditions. Maybe I can just reiterate. The most important thing today is the 2.5% commission that you must pay me and Johan and OVK. The rest we're not particularly worried about. No, I'm just joking. Ladies and gentlemen, that's important. Please just straight after the auction, if the hammer's fallen on you, the guys over here, please, with Erika, we're going to do all the documentation, the paperwork. If it's an online buyer, we will liaise with them, and they will do the necessary from there with them.
Sorry. I forgot to say one thing. I'm sorry about that. It is possible, I know there's a 7-day confirmation period, but it is possible that the bank may, within 10 minutes of me phoning them with a purchase price offered here today, confirming the stuff. So don't bank on there being 7 days. And don't bank on there being a second auction after this auction. Give it your best go. The confirmation might happen within 5 minutes of the fall of the hammer.
Die commissie, ja, is 2.5%. het gesê, die belangrikste, het jy nie eers te gehoor nie, Johan, ons belang is beskerm. That was going to be my next point. Please, ladies and gentlemen, do not bank on, and even with the loose assets afterwards, do not bank on the confirmation period. It could happen right now. So make sure that you are the highest bidder. Right then, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. As the farm, as a whole, included, where can I start the bidding? I would like to open up on 50 million. Who says 50 million to start? You know we're going to get there. 50 million to start. I'm in your hands, guys. You can shout at me. Anybody in at 50 million? Just remember, jy die hef in die hand is, jy eerste jou hand opsteek. 50 million to start. Can I start at 40 million? 40 million to start. 40 million. Thank you, sir. I'm on the floor at 40 million. I'm asking. I'm going to jump in 5 millions. 40 million. I'm bidding out of 40 million, out of 40. At 40 million rand out of 40. Now we're asking 45. 40 million. I'm bidding out of 40 million, out of 40. Are we all done at 40 million? At 40 million, remember, they could confirm straight after this. 40 million, I'm bidding out of 40 million, I'm bidding out of 40, now I'm asking 45. No more than 40 million, now I'm bidding at 40 million rand, het ek at 40, now at 40, at 40, at 40, at 40. Are we all done at 40 million, now at 40 million rand? At 40 million, I'm asking 45. 45, thank you, sir. At 45 now, so make 50. 50 million on bid. At 50, make it a 55, sir. 55 on bid, make 60, sir. 60 million on bid, now make a 65. Now drop. 61. 60 million, now make 61, sir. It's only money. 60 million on bid, now to 60, I'll take 61, sir. At 60 million, now to 60 million rand, het ek er 60, now to 60, now we hold on there 60 million. No more than 60 million. 61, I'm asking. I'll take a bit of time, ons het so lang gewag met die voorwaardes, ons gaan seker nog so 'n minuut uittrek. At 60 million on the floor, where's my online guys now? Have you got AgriMag on the line there? AgriMag's on the line with Yaku. At 60 million on the floor now, we're asking 61. No more than 60. I'm going to start calling it down. At 60 million for the first time. 60 miljoen. Kyk vir my, meneer. Vir die tweede maal. Okay, 60,500,000. 60 million for the third and the last time. Are you sure? 100%? Going, gone. Sold, subject to confirmation at 60 million rand. Thank you very much, sir. Bye, dankie. Righto. I'm going to be very fast. We're going to quickly do these 6 items that I still have to do. Ladies and gentlemen, just the terms and conditions are a little bit different. Only the commission you're paying on this is 10%. Okay, and I'm also doing it all subject to confirmation. We will try and let you know as soon as possible. It should take us no less than 48 hours or so, but as soon as possible, we will do the confirmation on the items. I'm selling all the items again. Food stewards today, there we are. Ladies and gentlemen, first up on our lot is lot number 2 that you'll see there. Landini Solus 90N 4-wheel drive cab. It's a 2020 model. It's not standing here, it's standing next door. Is ek reg, Jaco? Net oorkant daarso. Right, ladies and gentlemen, there are parts missing on it, is ek reg? But there's a quote for more or less 28,000 rand to do. Okay. Further, lyk hy nog mooi, cosmetically nice. There we go. Right then, ladies and gentlemen, in the office, anybody there where to start me? Can I start the bidding at 80,000 rand? 80,000 rand was my online no. 80,000 rand on the first Solus. Let's go low. I'll start on 50,000. 50,000 rand op die Solus. 50,000 rand to start. 50,000. It's not money. 50,000 to start op die eerste solis. 50,000 naar 50,000 rand to 50,000 I'm asking. 50,000. 40,000, I've got to get some type of a bid, but I just can't give him away like that. 40,000 to start. 40,000 rand op die eerste solis. Have I got 40? Meerkat. At 40,000 Meerkat, now we're asking 45. At 40,000 now die eerste een uit 40,000 rand het ek 40, now we're asking 45. At 40,000 out of 40,000 rand Meerkat. At 40,000 out of 40,000. Is sommer klaar teen 40,000 rand to 40,000 rand. Online, where are you guys now? At 40,000 out of 40,000 rand to 40,000 and bid now we're asking 45. At 40,000 out of 45, thank you. Okay, I'll take it, sir. Hierso kan ek nie stry vandag nie. At 41,000 on the floor, now to 41, now maak het 42 Meerkat. At 41,000 now to 41,000 rand het ek op die vloer. At 41 now to 40, at 41 now to 41,000, at 42 now Meerkat, 43 sir. At 43 on the floor, 43. At 43,000 now I'm asking 44. At 43,000 now to 43,000 rand op die so. At 44 now to 44, 45 on the floor. At 45 now to 45,000 rand to 45 on the floor. 46 Meerkat. At 45,000 on the floor now, at 45,000 rand to 45, at 45, at 45, at I'm klaar teen 45, 46, 47 on the floor, at 47 now to 47, at 47,000 rand to 47,000 now, at 47 is teen jou Meerkat to 47 now to 47 and 48 please, at 47,000 we all dan ek gaan klaarmaak op 47,000, 48, 49, at 49 on the floor, at 49 na maak rond 50 daar 49,000 aan bid, at 49 naar 49 en 49, at 49,000 rand op die 50 daar, at 50 now make 52 half, at 52 half now on the floor, at 52 half and passing 55, at 52 half now at 52,005. I'm asking 55, at 52 and a half on the floor. Are we all done? 55, 57 half. 56,000 aan bid. Ek sal weer duisende doen. At 56 on the floor, take 57. At 56,000, now we're asking 57. At 57 out of 57, maar kyk vir my sê. At 57 out of 58. At 58 on the floor, now we're asking 59. At 58,000 out of 58,000 rand to 58. Are we all done at 58,000? Kom Meerkat. Wie is dit daar? Matthew, come on. At 59, thank you, Macarona 60. At 60 on the floor, now to 60, I'll take 62 half. At 62,000 now to 60 het ek. At 60 on the floor, now we're asking 61. At 61 naar 62, 63 daar. At 62,000, 62,000 rand het ek. Are we all done? At 62,000, 63, 64. 64 on the floor, mark 65. Oh, 65, 66, 67. 66 is on the floor. 66,000 rand het ek 66,000, 67, 68. 69 het ek by Meerkat nodig. Got 68,000, 69 maak 70. 70 on the floor. 70,000 aan bid. 71, 72. 71,000 Meerkats at Matthew. Op 71. All done. Going. Bought. Gone. Sold STC. At 71,000 rand. Jaco, jy het hom, ne? Net skryf hoor. Hoe het jy hom? Meerkat se nommer. Dankie Johan. Righto. Manne, hier gaan ons na die volgende solis. This is a 2021 model. Daar kan julle sien, hy is mooi, is reg. Daar's hy. And surely I can start the bidding here at 70,000. Dis die beter ene. At 70,000 now to 70. 70,000 now to 70 now, I'm asking 72 half. At 70,000 now to 70,000 rand, het ek 70,000 now. At 70,000 now to 70,000 rand, to 70, maar asking 72 half. At 70,000 now to 70,000, 72 half. 72 half. 75, 75 on the floor, 77 half, 80 sir, 82 half. At 80,000 op die vloer, now to 80,000 number asking 82 half. At 80,000 now to 80,000 rand, 80,000 on the floor. 82 half, 85. At 85 on the floor. At 85 now, asking 87 half. 85,000 het ek nou, 85 now, I'm asking 87 half. Almal klaar. Teen 5 en 80,000 rand. Going on. 85. Your buy number there, sir. Buy number 364 on the floor, 85,000, that is STC. Righto. Here's die mooi so te sien. Daar sien maar na, julle sien hom weer. And I can start the bidding there at 70,000. At 70,000 now to 70,000 rand to 70,000 now to 70, and we're asking 72 half. At 70,000 is die laaste een. At 70,000 now to 70,000 now to 70,000. At 70,000 now to 70,000 now. Kom baas julle meerkat, 72 half I'm asking. At 72 half meerkat. At 72 half now to 72 half. At 72,005. All done at 72,005. Asking 75. At 75 meerkat. At 75 meerkat, asking 77 half. At 77 half, and we're asking 80. 77 half meerkat. 80,000 meerkat. Almal klaar teen 80. 80,000 vir die eerste maal. Tweede maal. 80,000, third and last time. Old meerkat, julle het die nommer daar. Dankie meerkat. Right, nou dames en here, we've only got 3 lots left. Baie dankie vir julle geduld. Asseblief moenie loop voor julle al die kosklaar geëet het nie. Die meisies van hulle figures en shape, hulle sê hulle wil nie self eet nie. En kry jy lekker koel drank hier. Lot number 5. Righto. Die man next daar. High Twister is 'n 3000 liter. A 2020 model. Daar sê dames en here. Any offers, any bids, where can I start? 60,000 to start. 60,000. 50,000. Surely 40,000. 40,000. 40,000. Dankie meerkat. At 40, 42 half on the floor. At 42,005 on the floor. Asking 45. 45, 47 half. 47 half, 50 op die vloer. At 50,000, 52 half I'm asking. At 52 half, Swiftfear. At 52 half, 55 on the floor. 55 on the floor. Hier is wat ek gaan doen is. The highest bidder can take one or both. Okay? Swiftfear, 50, 57.5, 60,000 on the floor. 60,000 on the floor, 62 half, 65 on the floor, 65,000 on the floor for the eerste maal, 67 half, yeah, sorry, that's on the floor, 70 on the floor there, 72 half, 75, 77 half, 80, 82 half, 85, 87 half, 90, 92 half, 95, 97 half, 100, 102, 104, 106, 108, 110, 115, 120, 125, 130, 135, 140, 145, 150, 5, 60, 5, 170, 5, 80, 185, 190, 195, 200, 195,000 op die vloer daar agter. Eerste maal. Ek sal jou kans gee, bra. Ek het heel dag. 195 for the second time. 200, 205, 210. Ek het 205 op die vloer. 210, 215, 220. $215,000 for the first time. Second time. 220, 225. Hy moenie nou bang wees, waar loop jy? Ek het 220, 225. 220 eerste maal, hou hom net eers op die lyn, 220 vir die tweede maal, 225, jy sien. At 225, 230, sir. At 225,000 on the floor, vir die eerste maal, 230. Sy nou uit. Eerste maal, tweede maal, derde maal. Wil hy al twee of net een? Hoor net gou by hom. Alright, ek gaan nie tande trek nie, kom ons doen dit, kom ek vuil die ander ene op. Vat hy al twee. Right, sold, dames en here, al twee, lot 5, 6, sold, Swift Fear. Julle sal net die nommers kry daar by Swift Fear, asseblief. 5? 5011, sold, dankie, Swift Fear. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going on to the last lot of the day. Net my gaan mooi luister. It's a 58 hectare Zematic. Pivot, it's standing in the Middelburg district. Here's the long and the short. If you are the successful buyer today, you have to liaise with my office or with OVK, more specific with Pierre Martins. You cannot just, if it gets confirmed, you cannot just go and arrive there at the farm and start breaking down. We're going to have specific instructions from the owner of the farm as well. We need to keep everybody happy here. We spoke about being transparent. So whatever it is, will be subject to confirmation, and then final arrangements for the removal, which you have to do by yourself, will be on the onus of the purchaser. Right. Then, ladies and gentlemen, where can I start bidding? Have I got nothing online to start? Nothing online to start. Who'll start me at 200,000? 200,000 to start. 100,000 I'll take. 110, sir. 120, sir. 130. And I promise you, I will not, I'm transparent. It's a real guy sitting there. 130, 140, sir. 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, 2, 210, 220, 210,000. Yeah, lost chance. All done, going, gone. 210,000 on your number 361 on the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very, very much. We will do the completion of all the paperwork. Your invoices will be sent to you. You should have them in the next hour or so. Bye bye, dankie dames en here. Ons waardeer al julle teenwoordigheid.